Setting up the live stream. Very important.
Everyone's really ripped by our meetings,
I'm sure they are. We're good to go whenever you are.
All right. Welcome everybody. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. Do we have to call attendance?
Nope, because Autumn isn't a member, so technically all voting members are present. So yeah, no, we're calling tonight. Yay.
Let's just introduce ourselves since we have a new person on board. I'll start since well, I met you in the hallway.
Yes.
But Kathleen Miller, I'm the current chair of the Conservation Commission, and I work at the University of New England and served on the council there and have done a lot of this environmental stuff, and I have a little farm on Broad Term. So yeah,
We're gonna go in this direction.
wherever you want.
I'm Kate Berdouis, and I'm old, retired, and I don't have a farm, but I have bees, and I live locally, and I'm very tied up in the long awaited expansion of the library. And the Conservation Commission for recently was an alternate, and I'm director of the small and profit kind of spirit of the school board.
All right.
Well, hello, everyone. Hello on screen. My name is Carrick Gamble, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I work for the University of Maine and the Natural Resources Conservation Service as I work with urban farmers and gardeners in the state on sustainable agriculture practices and urban conservation in general.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Member of the public.
Andrew Mackey, I represent the public.
Slash Scarborough Land Trust.
Sometimes Scarborough Electric.
I'm Angela Blanchett, I'm a town engineer.
I'm Jamie Fitch, the Sustainability Manager.
And I'm Abel Plug. I've been on the Conservation Commission for a couple of years. I'm the vice chair now, and I work at edX Laboratories.
I don't think Christine can see us. We don't.
I can see you. Can you hear me? Okay. I can see you. Anyway, I guess we're introducing ourselves. I think I came on right after you started, but Christine Lambury, I joined Conservation Commission in August of last year. So I'm a newbie. I'm a corporate communications consultant by training and executive coach, and also happen to be chair of the Scarborough Land Trust Board at the moment.
Autumn, do you want to introduce?
Sure, sorry, my video won't work tonight. I'm Autumn Spear, I'm the planning director for the town.
So you are wearing orange.
I am not wearing orange.
So Carrick is a new alternate that will be officially appointed on Wednesday at the town council. When the town council takes their final action on committee appointments. And just a reminder for you, before our next meeting, you'll have to get sworn in at the town clerk's office, and it should just take a couple minutes. Anytime during regular business hours, they can do that.
We don't have to be re-sworn in. And
You actually do if you're newly reappointed. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so Kathleen, you were reappointed. I can't remember who else. Christine, you were made a full commission member, I think. You were
I
moved
think
up.
technically as of tomorrow, if it all goes well, or Wednesday, I guess. I think it's dependent on this
Anybody
council
that's
meeting.
had either a reappointment or a change of status
Mhm.
needs to be sworn in with the clerk's
I know where
office.
to find me. Good.
Okay, so before next. Sure.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we will. So that served as our roll call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody introduce themselves and go with that.
So I'll just start with the short land acknowledgement. Let us begin by bringing our minds and hearts together to focus on our mission of responsible stewardship of Scarborough's lands and waters for generations to come. For generations before us, many people have protected these places we love. The places where we live and work are the original homelands of the Wabanaki people, including the Owasquawag people who once lived here in what we now know as Scarborough. I honor the care and respect with which they have stewarded these lands and waters. The lands and waters are unceded territory, and the struggle for Wabanaki sovereignty continues to this day. Our work to protect the lands and waters reflects our commitment to wise and responsible stewardship for all the future generations. Let us begin by holding this responsibility strongly in our minds, even as we face criticism and opposition.
Is there any part of that new?
Um,
I heard it
I-
for the first time.
oh,
Yeah, it was really, thank you, it was beautifully delivered.
thanks. I think last time I didn't have it and I didn't. That would be fun.
No, that was just, yes, especially these days, that was very moving.
Do we have any changes to the minutes?
I didn't have.
Shall we have a roll call vote on?
We need a motion.
A motion.
I move to adopt the minutes.
A second.
Thank you, and now we do need to roll call.
All in favor?
Yes, so in favor of approving the minutes, Cressy,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Kathleen, Abel,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
And, tonight we're here to do LID 101, so. How exciting.
Yeah, public do you want to do public
Yeah,
comment
sure.
first?
Andrew, do you have anything that you would like to, member of the public? Would you like to share anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. We have nobody on.
All right, we've got nobody online.
Okay. No public comment.
So we can, actually, let me confirm that online,
We got
Yeah, no,
surprised
good.
one time.
While she's pulling up, I'm actually kind of curious what everyone's kind of background, or if you have any experience or knowledge about low impact development. And as we start talking about an ordinance, like what kind of your background you guys have, or if we're starting, on a clean slate, that's fine too. I'm just kind of curious what this group brings.
We did watch the YouTube video, awesome, thank you.
Pretty much next.
Yeah.
Just good.
That's good.
Yeah, so I started there and then I did read some of the notes that Jamie here, just again, just trying to get.
Yeah.
High level concepts before, but that's just my knowledge, anybody else.
No, I have really two steps to the side experience from 30 years ago to get negotiating the density waiver for putting high density communities in. Dunstan Crossing was the one that I was mostly involved with in exchange, getting high density for exchange of contiguous open land. It didn't work out very well.
No, it doesn't typically work out very well.
No, well, first I was wide-eyed and innocent. I'm not anymore.
It's a great concept, but getting people kind
But
of
you
on
know,
board with it. is-
But when I came back from Florida, people, where's the land? And public, do you have any? So anyway, so my experience with it is be very careful. The doctrine of unintended consequences can attach before, in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, and then I guess with Autumn two's on, but her and I do a lot of the development review stuff, and so I'm not expecting you guys to have a whole lot of knowledge or background about low impact development, but where you guys do come in is like, as Jamie's gonna go through the minutia kind of little pieces and the details, and that's where pulling out your expertise and conversations around what we want to protect and what our priorities are is gonna help shape how we draft it and how it affects development in town greatly, is what we're hoping. So I just kind of was curious.
I'll just say for me, like, I don't have obviously I don't have a planning background, but I did do a lot of study in permaculture design, and so the improve, the permeable
Mhm.
surfaces, all like those kind of principles, I feel pretty well versed in
That's good.
the kind of conceptual principles. The application to a development site is, more of a design principle, and I haven't done any of that other than on like a few places. that
Okay,
I've-
if answering it, I could answer a different question than the one, so I just thought I was answering. So I have a fair bit of experience with freshwater management in Scarborough, in Florida, which is of course not Scarborough, but a lot of the, sheet flow to runoff to impermeable surfaces to. So
All applicable.
yeah, so
Yep.
and right down to where you right plant, right place. I mean, so.
Yeah.
So I can get pretty granular with that. I'm sorry, I answered the wrong question.
No, I think all of it, that's great.
And I'm a blank slate, but I'm looking forward to learning all this.
That's even better.
But I did do work on, water quality, so a lot of this really relates to, basically,
Yeah.
non-point source pollution and management
Yeah.
management practices around there.
Exactly.
So there's a relationship there, so I do know something. about that.
Definitely, yeah.
I bet you're gonna find that you all know more than you think you do.
I do too,
as
that's
we
why
walk-
I'm just kind of
walk through
curious,
this.
it's more of like,
Both.
how we package it
Yeah.
is where we come in, it's kind of, like you said, pulling at all these threads that you guys are talking about.
I did my capstone forever ago on like purple pavement.
Yeah.
But like, again,
Awesome.
I didn't get the sense, that's been a while, but I didn't get the sense like that was the number one idea. It almost seemed like it was like.
Yeah.
Don't make an impermeable surface at all, ideally, and then. we'll
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah, and then what we're gonna find as we walk through all of this is it all relates to the site conditions, and
Yeah.
we've got some unique site conditions in Scarborough. We don't have super permeable soils, we've got a lot of wetlands, we've got high water table, and so we have to think about how that will interplay with the requirements the state is kind of handing down to us.
I'm sorry,
To
sidetracked
Eric,
maybe.
yeah, right.
But
I just was curious if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had anything here. that you-
I would echo sort of your experience as well with permaculture, and I've worked with public parks on native landscaping, and so with some familiarity with like vegetative buffers and nature-based designs. And I did read through the like main model ordinance for low impact strategies, so some of that resonated.
And we will jump in. And so just to give kind of like the context for why we're here, it is all about development and impervious surfaces, so hard surfaces like roadways, walkways, parking lots, rooftops, and how we have, as humans, have changed how water flows over and soaks into the land. And so in a natural environment, we have very little runoff. Most of it's either evaporated or infiltrated into the soil, whereas in a developed environment with all of those hard surfaces, we have a lot more runoff. The majority of water runs over the surface of the land, directly into our waterways. It picks up pollution as it does that. And so the hope of low impact development is to kind of develop the land in a way that we put systems in place that will mimic kind of the more natural conditions and allow water to soak into the ground before it can run off, pick up pollution and go into our waterways. So this is just kind of like the 30,000 foot overview of low impact development as it relates to the kind of standards that we've been handed to us from DEP. So the goal will be to preserve natural features like wetlands and buffers, drainage channels. We're getting hung up a lot in some of our conversations on the natural drainage channels. So we've got developers saying, oh, well, what do you consider a natural drainage channel? Because my excavator created this bridge here, 10 years ago and it's still there. Is that natural? And so there's like some semantics that we're gonna have to work through. The stormwater systems that are installed will mimic the natural landscape, so they'll either, like soak or allow water to soak into the ground. Like I said, in Scarborough, that might be a challenge depending on the site that we're working at. Or they use, they're designed with soils, specific soil makeup and plants to remove pollutants. And the majority of the sites will require smaller systems throughout the site to collect and infiltrate runoff, as opposed to one large system like a stormwater pond or something like that. So really looking at like breaking up the flow of water and giving it opportunities to infiltrate before it can run off or before it goes into a larger centralized system. Looking at minimizing impervious areas, rooftops, parking lots and roads. There are some strategies for how to do that. And again, this one is one where there may be some conflict with some of the town's priorities, like adding sidewalks to our roadways and things like that. That's impervious area. So we need to figure out how to balance minimizing impervious area while also having the amenities that we want to have in Scarborough. Minimizing soil compaction, and then prioritizing vegetated ditches along roadways instead of curb and gutters. So getting water out of a pipe and into the ground. So I'm gonna walk a little bit more, and you guys can stop me at any time. And Angela and I are happy to answer questions, or if something isn't making sense, just let me know.
So, well, first
Yeah.
question, applicants would be for commercial and residential development?
Yeah, so
Okay.
right now it would be applicable for anything that goes before planning board. So it'll be
Okay.
larger site divisions, subdivisions and commercial site plans primarily.
So not single family house lots.
Got
So looking first at the requirement to minimize site clearing, so the ordinance would require developers to really inventory their entire parcel and document sensitive areas on their plans, including waterways, protected natural resources, drainage ways, buffers, habitat, and vulnerable areas, and more. So basically, they need to kind of lay out on their plans all of those features, and then kind of work within those features to figure out how the development they hope to do will fit on their parcels. So right now, the process is kind of like, I have this parcel, these are my boundaries, this is where I'm putting the building and the parking and all the other infrastructure, and then I'm gonna think about what's actually on site and what the constraints may be. This is kind of flipping things. And ideally, they will be looking at kind of the natural features on the parcel to begin with, and then figure out how to fit their development within those features. The guidance DEP or the requirements DEP gave us says that there will be a minimum of a 25-foot buffer to all protected natural resources. So I underlined buffer on this because if you remember the fund process that we went through for our wetlands, we have a 25-foot setback, and the first 15 feet of that setback is a buffer. So this would be expanding that buffer to wetlands.
So could we
I was hoping it was
put that,
be bigger.
put a note that's next to that, that when we get a little farther down and the tension between those standards comes into play when we get, but right now we see it, it's there, but just see how we can reconcile
And
that.
understand better, this is a 25-foot buffer, and how does that compare to what we have?
Well, right now we have a 25-foot setback. Our buffer is only 15 feet. And remember, that was like the bare minimum that we could get passed because of all of the pushback. So now we have to increase that 25-foot setback to include a full 25-foot buffer. And again, that's the minimum. So that if there is the interest on the part of the decision makers in Scarborough to increase that buffer, that would be awesome. Because again, 25-foot setback with a 15-foot buffer was the minimum that we were able to.
Who here was happy with that? None of us.
I mean,
It was better than nothing. But I don't think they were even fully
No.
happy with it. They wanted it to stay the way it was. So,
Yeah.
you know, a good compromise is no one's happy.
Right.
yeah.
So,
Do we have a sense of like what support looks like right now.
I think, I feel like from council, there's a lot of support because of a lot of the housing pressure. And legislation coming from Augusta, which Autumn is knee deep in.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what that means for everything, so I think. Council is supportive to try to do, sensible growth and kind of, let's look at. Growing but protecting our resources, one of the tools. So I think it would be worth reopening, and I think that has come up in the past, is do we need to revisit the standard in particular that we already know? And we need to add 10 feet to what we currently have, so what is the number that we can document and kind of support from this group to say, here's why we pick this number instead?
Mhm.
And kind of, I think justifying that number, I think we'll have support.
Should we go back? to
As you
100
saw
feet?
before, we went really out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started with 100 feet, we ended up with a 20-foot.
Well, you didn't
foot
forget
setback, but-
yourself, that's the important thing. And we've all learned this, you have to give yourself some room to move.
Mhm.
So just in terms of, I get ahead of myself. We'll bear that in mind when the time comes to lay out something that's gonna get pushed back.
But you guys think about it, start thinking about it, where
I
you guys
think
feel
this
comfortable
council
with.
is much more focused on, and worried about because of LD 229.
Exactly.
I think that's providing an
And they see
opportunity.
this as a potential tool to help them.
Yeah.
Manage the impacts of that law, so that's.
Yeah.
why.
And and that said, that's just what I was thinking, is that what we don't wanna do is get squeezed that we're developing something that is inherently the right thing to do, but to use it as a tool to achieve a different end. So keeping in mind that there are two avenues into this. One is to use it as a growth management tool, and the other is to use it as where I'm coming from this seat, is to have an environmental preservation tool. So I just don't want to be.
But having both kind of like reasons for this, I think is really,
good.
it's good.
Okay, I
It's
just
good.
don't want to be leveraged in the wrong direction.
I just think you guys will bring the justification, and I think
Okay.
that's the key, to your point, where you're bringing justifying why we're doing it, it's not just about trying to limit growth, it's because this is the right thing to do.
And if it
Which
works,
coincidentally, makes-
hallelujah.
right.
So that's, I guess that was my feeling, is that I really wanted to stick with the high road
Yeah,
here.
yep, exactly.
So one question about process, given that it was dealt with just last year and brought down. What is justification for us to come back and say, hey, we want to revisit this again?
Well, we're required, first of
Right,
all,
so now, okay, right, so because of.
so
the
it opens
LID
up the conversation.
Again. okay,
again.
So we can use this as the entryway to.
Yeah,
put
yeah.
this back up.
But it wasn't, we did pass it. It
It was
was,
just the-
it was,
it's-
it was
yeah.
just not
just saying
what we
to-
wanted it to be.
Right, just say, yeah, what,
That's
This
true,
is
it
the
was a
leverage.
positive outcome,
Yeah,
yes. We didn't have anything before.
And I think based on feedback from you, Angela and Autumn,
How's it going?
there hasn't been a whole lot of complaining
Right,
about it.
We
like-
ask for more, would be like, we're right up, we're just getting by first passage time, or like, do we have runway to be like, well, actually, based on the feedback?
I don't know, Autumn, if you wanna jump in, but my perspective, and like I said, she probably listens to more of the whining than I do, I just. And say, here's the standard.
Yeah.
But I also dealing with the engineers who said. At the podium.
Yeah.
That we can't deal with state permitting because of your ordinance and we're in conflict and there's all these issues.
Yeah, right.
And we're finding, what I see from my seat is, it is working. I think the state knows that we have a higher standard. I think the consultants are navigating that and figuring it out and moving forward. And we kind of say, here's what others are doing. This is how they navigate it. And they're going step by step and going through. I don't think it really adds anything other than what Jamie started at the beginning is they're looking at the site differently when they're coming into it and saying, wetlands are a big deal. I gotta start with where are the wetlands? which we didn't get before. It was, she mentioned, you put up, this is where I want my building and your parking, and oh, by the way, we're the wetlands. And that's not,
How
that's
much am I
kind of
filling?
flipping the script now, which so I think is making that positive impact, and they're navigating permitting through the state and federal.
And so just also it feels to me that when they were negotiating with us as the town and the commission or whatever, we were always on our back foot.
Mm.
This is a big, in that it's an imperative. We're in a much stronger position to have a better parameters around it. I can't use this term position twice in the same sentence. But I think it gives us a lot,
Get a little more clout this time.
stability. Yeah,
States.
that we're not gonna get pushed around the way we, I hate to say pushed, that we're not vulnerable to pressure the same way. And so going forward, I think that informs how much we want to bite off from you.
Autumn, did you want to add anything from your experience with the planning board and working with developers?
No, I agree with Angela. It hasn't been nearly the problem that everyone expected it to be, and we haven't stopped anyone from developing, so it's been fine.
That's true.
And then the other piece of this is to preserve vegetation. And again, we've been talking a lot about tree cutting in Scarborough, so this may give us should give us an opportunity to kind of address that. Still trying to figure out how that exactly will work in a state like Maine where tree cutting is part of our heritage.
I think council has a goal to explore no clear cutting, so we could start from that perspective too.
One of the council's goals for 2026 was to address clear cutting in commercial development, right, Autumn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it directly relates to this, so it gives us kind of more motivation to kind of go after and address this one.
That's kind of that's in the standard too, right? That
Yeah.
ID, right?
Yeah, and the fact that it's a council goal should make
Yeah.
that one move forward a little bit more easily than some of the others.
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
quick question on the last slide? I think I've seen this graphic, but what is right now there's a 15-foot buffer. What's the other 10 feet? That like, it's a 25-foot setback
Yeah.
that is in existence.
So essentially, like, there can be some like grading, some earthwork that happens in that 10 feet. It basically, the experience that we've had or seen on a site is that in order to construct like a retaining wall or something for a parking lot, it goes right up to the edge of the wetland and then there's equipment in the wetland. And through our wetland ordinance, we were like, no, we don't want that to happen. And so you need to preserve 15 feet of vegetated buffer, but there's this kind of 10-foot additional setback where you can do some work in there. So just to, if they do need to construct their like grade for a parking lot or put in a retaining wall for a parking lot or something like
Well,
that.
you can't do structures, so you can't do a building or.
But in order to construct the retaining wall, it gives them basically an area to
That 10
have
feet,
their
yeah,
equipment.
exactly.
in.
But it can't be in the setback.
So basically giving them room to work without impacting the resource.
Or impacting the buffer, that 15
Yeah.
feet, really.
And again, we were hoping for larger than 15 feet, but that's what we were able to kind of get past. Baby steps though, incremental progress. Also need to protect natural drainage ways, and so thinking about our streams, both tributary streams or intermittent streams and perennial streams. The new crossings will need to use stream smart principles, which essentially is an open bottom culvert or a culvert large enough for natural like the bed of the river to kind of be like for a buried culvert. The width of the culvert needs to be 1.2 times the width of the stream itself to allow for changes in water during high flow events and things like that. Basically making sure that any critters that might be in that waterway are able to get through that waterway. And then also to plan for future flooding, due to intense rainfall. Right now, the standard that the state provided to us only talks about Stream Smart, which is for inland streams. There's also a state program called Coastwise, which is looking at tidal crossings. And so since we are a coastal community, we should also be our ordinance should specify that tidal crossings need to use Coastwise principles. So that we are not putting in a bunch of undersized tidal culverts, because that's a problem. And again, I mentioned in an earlier slide, but the whole pre-development drainage ways need to be maintained, and so we're gonna run up against what is pre-development, I think, is a little bit easier. It's when they start talking about the natural drainage ways and what's natural versus not natural. So pre-development, I think, is a little bit more cut and dry, like, was there a drainage channel there before you started developing? Okay, then it needs to still be there, after the site is developed.
Sorry, just, so even just starting from that point, like, the approach today, you look at parcel wetlands in certain areas, so like, what's the philosophy gonna be with that? Is it, don't touch it, are you still allowed to do permits to build them? Like, I mean, just in general, are there still size limits, or is it more, are people kind of shifting their frame of thinking when they even look at a parcel, what's possible?
Yeah, I mean, this stream and the waterways and stuff, I think is a bigger issue, or to deal with, that you can permit, but it's more costly. So I feel like developers coming into a parcel, that when you start thinking about drainage ways, they start thinking about the cost of that. So yeah, I think it's good that they're all kind of gonna have to shift their mindset to this, which they already have with wetlands, and now we're gonna look at, okay, that's not just streams, it's other natural drainage. So it's like opening kind of a whole new category. So it is gonna have to be a little bit of a mind shift on how you guys would look at, say, a stream. You also need to now start looking at these natural drainage ways, which may have in the past been automatically filled.
Or pumped. We had
Or
a,
piped.
yeah, piped, pumped. We had a site come through that wanted, a couple years ago, that wanted to like pump their stormwater from one watershed into another one. Like, what? Yeah. Yeah, yes. I can't do that.
So in terms of, I mean, is there more to this? I'll hold my question.
No, you're fine.
There are a couple of things occur to me that somebody, I should know this by now. Is what are the minor watersheds within the major watershed, and also what do we have for soils maps and drainage maps? Because that's gonna. I trust we don't have an aquifer under here, or do we?
Some areas.
Some areas, western.
So, you know, so it would be helpful for us to know if there are sufficient numbers of variables when we come around to do this, that we don't let anything slip through that net. And so, yeah. That'll do for now.
Well, and a lot of this too is, I don't know that we've ever passed an ordinance that's been perfect on the first time
Right.
around. So I think, you know, a lot of this is going to be reliant on the information that is provided to us by the applicants. And so they're gonna have to provide us with the documentation to kind of explain why, and we're gonna kind of get into this a little bit further on, but a lot of this is kind of subjective. There's many different ways to kind of achieve these standards, which is part of the reason it is so daunting for staff to think about writing an ordinance where there's multiple ways to get at the same end result. So some of it is going to be relying on the information and like documentation that's provided to us from the applicants, so that we can review it and make sure that their approach is going to be appropriate for the site.
And we'll have the inventory for their site that they may not even be aware of. They think they own to like, what, 3 feet down. You know, they're not looking necessarily, so we would have those inventory.
Well, they're providing it as part of their application.
And some of
So
it we
we
can
review
verify,
it,
and we
and
can
we review
verify.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
And our
I
third
know
party.
for the maps, but yeah. If there's something missing, yeah.
One
Yeah.
question, pre-development drainage ways could also be drainage that is not natural, but is just pre.
Exactly.
Right, so those will be maintained. what if those are bad things we don't want, like, what if that's a kind of a drainage, if it's an artificial or.
Yeah, these are all questions that we need to
Yeah.
kind of, that we're grappling with and trying to figure out.
Yeah, positive thing. Okay.
Alright. Minimize impervious area, so we've talked about this with this group, mentioned it on many occasions. So some of the strategies that DEP has provided to us is encouraging multi-story buildings and parking garages. Parking garages are super expensive, so I can't see people getting really excited about that, even though it is a really efficient use of space and you can do some really interesting things with parking garages. Developers are all about money, so
Yeah, they're like, oh.
that's going to be a really expensive thing for them to kind of deal
But
with.
in Portland, you're seeing them building parking under their buildings, so which
Right, so
is.
instead of the ground floor, there's parking and then.
Yeah. Which is also a really good strategy in vulnerable areas because you're obviously raising up your structures. And then encouraging stormwater treatment systems that are designed to infiltrate. So this photo is showing parking stalls that are porous pavement. So on the left, it's traditional pavement. You can see it's glossy wet. And on the right, it's porous. So the water has soaked into the ground. Again, infiltration. Treatment systems can be challenging in Scarborough. It's hard to infiltrate stuff into poor soils and wetlands.
It's supposed to run off into them.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. And then also we're going to talk about this a bit later also, but some of our stream watersheds have issues with chloride. So any salt that you put down on these parking lots in the wintertime soaks into the ground, and then that water in the summertime feeds the streams. And so we have spikes of salt in our streams in the summertime. So none of this is easy. It's all very complicated and things we need to be thinking about how we are writing this ordinance, because it is not black and white by any.
Yeah, but it also might be, as an example, Martin's Point, they have some, porous pavement out there, and looking at, maybe you need to get property management groups start thinking about, do you need salt? Because I think you look at it, I've gone out there for an appointment or something, and the areas that aren't slick, but they have to put more salt down, it just infiltrates so quickly that they really don't need to treat it at all. So it's technically saving money, but I think a lot of those property maintenance groups get paid by the ton of salt they put down.
I would say,
So
so,
you gotta
yeah.
start kind of flipping that script as well. And so how do we get a kind of incentivizing kind of these properties to say, look you can save money in winter operations and other things, and try to look at it differently.
Yeah. And then minimizing the widths of roads, driveways, and parking lot drive aisles. Again, we're gonna come into conflict here with public safety and being able to get emergency vehicles. In these areas. So those are things that are gonna come into play as we think about what kind of the maximum width might be for some of these areas. And then start setting parking maximum. So right now we have minimum parking. So like a commercial development needs to have at least this number of spaces, but we don't really have a maximum number. So it'll be kind of working through that to set a maximum number of spaces and then also maximum space size. So if anybody's been to Costco lately, those are really big spaces. It's nice to turn for like my kids, that my youngest who's got his permit, he would love every parking stall to be like oversized. Not so great for our streams and watersheds.
And that was a discussion with the planning board, because it's a hard pill to swallow, to kind of look at that and the amount of impervious air that adds just by adding another foot or two to every parking stall. When you talk about a parking lot like Costco, it adds up. And so it's quite a bit of impervious area they added there, so
And again, might be another strategy for dealing with some of like the development pressure that we are seeing in Scarborough, and that setting maximum percent impervious for parcels.
We have 80%.
I think most of them are 80. I can't remember either. Autumn, do you remember if you had a target that you were thinking of for percent impervious?
I would say in the 60 range, maybe. If I just had to guess for commercial, that would be I mean, you could go lower, but it depends on what the use is.
And it's currently what?
Most are 75 to 80, I think. Some of the smaller or the less intense districts might be 60. I don't actually remember off the top of my head though.
And then any impervious area that is on a site should be disconnected, which basically means the water that flows off of that impervious area is going into some sort of treatment system. So instead of going directly into a pipe and into an outfall to a local water body. So directing it to vegetated areas, so that would be like our buffers, or another treatment system. The picture there is a tree box filter, so that's an engineered kind of solution where there's layers of soil and mulch in that box underground that tree is growing in, that is it's designed to remove pollutants, and the tree, that any vegetation that's implanted in there will help take up pollutants also. So this would be an example of impervious surface that is disconnected because it's going through treatment before it's being discharged. And it's interesting as I was putting this together, because this one says require roof runoff to be directed towards buffers or treatment systems designed to infiltrate. Later on, it's going to talk about rainwater harvesting and put it in using cisterns. So a little bit of a conflict where we're either saying, you know, put it in a buffer or put it in a rain barrel, but.
Retention ponds are not seen, and because we do have, you say poor filtration ourselves. Are those sort of artificial wetlands that we create, are those at all, could they be considered part of a treatment system that was disconnected or not?
So there's a difference between a retention or detention pond and a created wetland. So the pond doesn't take out a lot of the pollutants.
So yeah, okay. So
It will basically let like sediment settle out and things like that. But it's not great for nutrient removal and
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
The created wetlands, on the other hand, do a much better job, have much higher rates of uptake for like phosphorus and nitrogen and things like that. So the gravel wetlands or created stormwater wetlands are preferred to any kind of retention or
would
detention.
those qualify for this sort of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Florida, one of the things we were facing, if she says that one more time, she's taking a slap. But in Florida, one of the things in my community we were facing where we had, there were a lot of regulations about the amount of planting shelves and the density and the numbers of, and it was all about nutrient uptake because it was all this golf course flowing into these 27
Yeah.
ponds and blah. What we ran into, and I say this just because it may be applicable, is that at a certain point, the uptake and the death turns to real sludge. So you're in the process of killing your pond as you go. And so keeping in mind that, just bearing in mind that we're not creating an endless infinite resource, that it might not happen anywhere near as fast for us on our lifetime to worry about it. We don't have the climate, but it's going to happen because every time one of those plants dies and its shoots come up, or the sludge is just going to degrade the ability of the wetland to hold more vegetation. So just
Yeah, so
How's
and
that?
there are, the town has existing, basically operations and maintenance requirements that, all of these systems need to be inspected on an annual basis and it's reported to the town. And so, and if there are any like maintenance needs, they have a certain amount of time to complete that and also report that to the town so that we do have a higher level of comfort with these systems actually functioning as they were designed, because they are required to basically report to hire a third party to inspect them and then report to us that they are functioning.
Clearly, I'm describing a system that didn't have that.
Right, but it's development in the last couple of decades. So
Yeah.
obviously we have a lot of infrastructure in town from the eighties and nineties that is not in that category.
Right.
Yeah.
Minimize soil compaction is pretty straightforward. Essentially, any areas that are disturbed that we want to vegetate afterwards, compacted soil will prevent that from happening. And so, looking at restricting equipment to already disturbed areas or existing impervious areas, and then requiring aeration of areas after that are to be revegetated. So that stuff will actually grow and it's not just creating another impervious surface made of soil this time instead of like pavement. So again, this may require some like additional inspections or review on site to make sure that that's actually happening during the construction process.
Are there techniques for reducing that, like putting down mats or anything, to try to help prevent compaction during excavation, or is it kind of just?
I would say probably, but the number of people using it is probably minimum because it is one more step and more money. One of the best things to do is to, not open up an entire site all at once and go incrementally. So that you're not kind of just driving all over the entire site all of the time. And so again, it's kind of like reframing how you're doing the work.
Yeah, so it could be, like our construction sequencing that they have to provide us for the site, like to Jamie's point, we're opening up these small areas. And then also, I would say on the back end, it's that after the site work and make sure the aeration is happening, and that can be something that we can easily kind of monitor.
Do we have staffing to be like monitoring?
So we do third-party inspections,
Okay.
so that goes through my office, but, so I see all the inspection reports come through, but we hire a consultant who goes out and does all of our inspections, well, not, I should say, not all, our subdivision and some of our roadways and the downs.
And the developer pays for it.
And the developer, we pay and then we get reimbursed from the developer, so. That seems.
So that's built into the.
It is
process
built
already,
into the
yeah.
process. So to your point, with stricter standards and more inspection, it would be a cost incurred by the developer.
Just a question, some developments like the Eight Corners, they had to do a lot of soil movement. So how would that be different, or else they couldn't do that kind of? Because you minimize disturbance, right? Because there's been quite a few sites where, there's a massive movement and import of soil
To level things
to
out.
level things out and to, because they found the soil that at the site was actually far worse than expected or predicted, so. In those kinds of scenarios, how does this?
I think every site's gonna
I mean,
be
the previous
different, so it's kind of hard, but in that instance, like you said, the fact that they went in and clear cut kind of the whole thing and then just leveled, and basically compacted the whole site to that point and then worked from there, I think it's just a different way that we need to have into the approvals and kind
So
of
that
through
would
the
change.
inspection is like, give us your construction. Right now, I don't require, or it's not required for a contractor. We do have a pre-construction meeting, we sit down and talk a little bit about like, okay, what's your plan, what's your timeline, but there's nothing that formal that says kind of their construction sequencing, and I go back to that, and then that's really large sites that matter with that. Probably the most, and I will say in town, we have a lot of preloads because our soils are junk. And so you see it all over, every time anyone does a building. They had a lot of activity, so that won't change, that they are gonna have to do, I'm not saying that. Oh, they should only work in these small areas, because when you think about some of these large buildings like Costco that had that big preload for months, there's sometimes you can't avoid that, so it's just kind of, I think we'd have to look at it case by case basis and what can we do on this site, and that's where it goes back to, it's all kind of like. Kind of looking at it and say.
They'll basically
It's
have to
hard to
justify,
yeah.
to explain to us and justify to us why they are proposing kind of the sequencing and the approach that they're taking. And
We're just trying to minimize the impact of that kind of soil loading and work.
Yeah, and right now, the questions may not be asked in the same detail or something like that, so maybe it'd be a group effort to kind of think this through. I don't know what that's gonna look like, like you said, it's like we're trying to figure out how you write that. And how, and for something that is really a case by case basis, so we need to have some flexibility in there.
Yep, but it is a common theme in our
Yeah,
area.
exactly,
Right, yeah.
exactly.
Hey, Angela, would it be a possibility to put in, like some sort of parameters around how much disturbance can happen on the sites? Maybe on like a scaled approach, depending on how big they are?
So right now DEP has 1 acre that you can have open,
Right, no,
down.
but I'm saying out of that acre, I'm saying you can't just, like, if you have a 2 acre site and we had a requirement that you can only disturb 75% of the site, so there's a quarter of that site that can never get touched. Is that
Yeah.
something we could look at?
Well, that would come to play with your probably impervious cover, right?
in the site.
Well, no,
inventory.
not necessarily, because you could disturb the whole thing and then just put it back to landscaping, right?
Uh,
But we're
I'm not-
also, we're looking at preserving kind of like the natural buffers and the drainage ways and the habitats and all of that stuff as part of their site inventory.
But in the unique site for Scarborough, if there's no wetlands or streams, you still go back to then your tree preservation,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
So
right.
Where that plays into it.
Cause I think about that 8 Corners site, it's like they wouldn't have done that now,
Right.
right?
Well, the
Kind
eight
of done a
corners,
thing
so
in the woods.
the eight corners site, though, to be fair, they preserved 44 acres in the back. They wanted, I mean, the bad thing about that one is they clear cut it.
Yeah.
What they did develop, and they didn't preserve any of the trees. So
Yeah, it
there's
could've-
some other ordinances that have to be changed for that because they met all of our town ordinances. I was just thinking if there's a limit on actual disturbance we could put into play too. And we could kind of marry that with the trees. I'll think about it more.
It's definitely part of the requirements is to show their limit of disturbance, and we require that now, but we could start thinking about that, I guess, how we could kind of frame that.
So do we need like a survey of all of our ordinances to see what
Yeah.
all of these pieces
This-
touch? That's what you all are doing.
Yeah, this is going to require a review of many other different ordinances to make
Yeah.
sure that they're not in conflict, and we always have the kind of caveat in there that where there is conflict, the more restrictive requirement applies and things like that.
So where do you see us jumping on board?
Give me a minute to get through this, then we'll,
I know,
then we'll get there.
Yeah, you're not speaking away today.
All right, so we already do a pretty good job with native plants, so we do have our town native plant list. But looking at opportunities to minimize lawns, maximize buffers. Either natural buffers or kind of more landscaped buffers, like what's shown on the screen, so. This is an example of like a parking lot with curb cuts that goes into a crushed stone kind of infiltration area, but then allows sheet flow through that into the vegetated area that is a vegetated swale. So this is just one example of how some of this might be accomplished, but really looking at like not having massive lawns, really trying to focus on vegetation and you know, topography to allow water to flow to the low point and then probably just sit there in a lot of cases in Scarborough. So our vegetative swales might not look that pretty. They might have a lot of cattails, so probably eventually Fred might use those, unfortunately. If we're gonna be honest, but yeah, looking at ways to kind of maximize kind of landscape features and not just lawn. And again, prioritizing vegetated ditches and swales instead of curb and gutters. So another example, I was reading regulations recently for Massachusetts, they call them country roads. So looking at vegetated ditches instead of catch basins, curbs.
This is the euphemism ordinance.
But yeah, trying to again, get water out of a pipe and into the ground is.
They're more attractive, I have to say, I mean.
Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
Wouldn't
I don't know if it'll look like that, but
If it's maintained.
If it's maintained, that's the other piece, is like change it, like maintenance for these types of systems changes a lot.
Yeah.
And we,
Um,
yeah, here, we don't have, I mean, I'd like to check and see what our predicted or the pattern of rainfall is over the year and the season, as winter doesn't count so much. But it really has to be designed based on the seasonal rainfall.
Yeah, which is why, using native plants as much as possible where it's,
This is a lot of grass.
that is a
Yeah,
lot of
that's a
grass.
lot
I
of
mean, that does, when we're talking about our vegetated ditches, grass is the easiest thing to do. It's easy to maintain, you mow it, fewer obstructions. You don't want woody plants and stuff in there. Because they're harder to maintain. They can block the drainage channel and things like that. So it is finding kind of that balance. And treatment and retention of stormwater. So again, looking at ways to collect and infiltrate stormwater. This is where I mentioned the conflict. They're saying all roof runoff should go into a rain barrel, for example, or require collection and storage of roof runoff. This is where we talk about winter maintenance, and so the ordinance will require people to at least consider reducing winter salt in urban impaired streams. Urban impaired streams are the only kind of requirement in the way it's written right now. So our urban impaired streams are Red Brook, Phillips Brook, and Long Creek. But also to consider, Scarborough should also consider thinking about its threatened streams as well. Millbrook, Willowdale Brook, both of those are in the area of the Downs and Favelas. And then Beaver Brook down at Scotto Hill Road.
That is more about the turnpike interchange.
Yeah.
Which is like that, salt on that, but. I don't know where our next growth starts to
Right.
end up, so it's better to get ahead of it.
Yep. Right now, the language is going to require stormwater systems to treat a maximum of 1 acre of impervious area. That gets into some of our larger developments, like the Downs, for example, that will be a challenge. I think there are opportunities, the way it's written right now, for larger systems to be allowed in kind of larger developments like that, but still trying to have more smaller diffuse systems as opposed to one massive system is preferred. And they need to be designed to remove pollution, not just like sediment and trash, but like nutrients, bacteria, metals, stuff that's actually having a greater impact on our waterways than trash.
And this is a real departure. No, I'm not gonna ask it. I'll come back.
And so things that we can consider or should consider as we're working through here, right now, their ordinance requires or says that these requirements would apply to any development that's going to disturb an acre of land. We can ratchet that down and say 10,000 square feet, 8,000 square feet. Angela had the experience in Saco where their minimum threshold was 10,000 square feet. And she said they saw an awful lot of 9,999 square foot.
No matter what you pay, it's
Yeah.
gonna do. I think South Portland is 5,000, they see a lot just up the threshold, like that's
Yeah.
what you're gonna get, but.
It's a growth management tool.
Yeah. Need to think about waivers and exemptions, so I think there's already some called out in the language or standards that were provided by DEP, and so we're gonna have to decide, think about, do we want to incorporate those, or are there others that we might need to incorporate? You guys have brought up a lot of things for us to be thinking about tonight, so those are waivers and exemptions are probably gonna have to come into play here when the site constraints. You know, make it hard to meet some of the standards that have been outlined. And then, like we've said, a lot of this is subjective, so how do we determine if the standards have been met? Like, how are we going to review the development that comes through to make sure that they are meeting these requirements? Portland has kind of a weighted evaluation, so they've assigned points to various kind of techniques. And the applicant has to hit a minimum number. That's one way of going about it. But we're just not sure it's actually going to achieve all of the things that we need to make sure we're achieving. Then we'll talk about timeline. So
This is what I was asking. Here we go.
So our goal is to get this before the ordinance committee this summer, which means between now and June, staff will be developing language and bringing it to you all for your review and to poke holes at and to ask us these questions that maybe we haven't thought about. And to provide some feedback to us, and we'll be seeking public feedback in this time period as well. Our summer committee schedule, the town council's committee schedule can sometimes be different over the summer, so hopefully July or August, there will be an ordinance committee meeting and this will be ready to go before them. And then this fall, we'll start bringing it through the process with the town council. So town council will have a first reading once it comes out of ordinance committee. They would refer it to the planning board for their review and feedback, and then it would go back to the town council for a second reading and a vote, and hopefully that will happen October, November. And it'll be fantastic. It'll be in place and everyone will be happy and there will be no pushback.
And we'll meet that timeline.
Oh, yeah.
If in the ordinance committee, we here's everyone poking holes at it, and we might have to revisit certain sections, or last time we had to have a sit down and kind of have negotiations at that point. That's where it's gonna come up, and so that's why it's really critical that
Which
you
is
guys are part
tough
of this
because
conversation.
people go, I mean, I don't go, but I mean, but that's a hard time. And this might be again a little bit out there to one side, but at the library, we have, I don't know how many acres of retention pond. Retention basins. Whether there's I'm looking at this, what looks like a planted wetland retention.
That is a vegetated swale.
Oh, right. I see a vegetated swale. And so I'm just saying, if we want to put together a demonstration project, I know whose arm to twist to make that happen. But it's very public, it's very visible, and I can't build on it. Thank you, Autumn. I can't build on it, but it just strikes me as something that could be an effort to say, and this is gonna be beautiful, people. You know,
You could put benches for the read books while they're out.
I mean, they do become amenities, so that for like a lot of the areas where, you know, they've taken portions of like public parks in order to collect and treat stormwater, they become amenities. So they become beautiful places for people to enjoy. So, you know, instead of this whole thing on the screen being just a grassed ditch, which is usually what it looks like, they've put native plants in there. And so it serves to like improve the aesthetics of the community while also treating stormwater.
And we have been talking with, the Downs has it as one of their central, they have a gravel wetland, we have many gravel wetlands, but one is like centralized around their housing. That has a trail around it and benches, and it became an amenity, and we talked about putting some like educational signs around, this is what you're actually looking at, here are the plants that are in that, this is how it's functioning like a wetland. But doing that treatment and doing the work, and it's basically their park. If you go out behind Hackamore and Front Runner, they've created it to look like an amenity, and it's functioning that way.
Can I ask one clarifying question?
Yes,
Can you
absolutely.
remind us how things get to ordinance committee, like if we're looking at this or
Are you all submitting that or?
So, it can vary. Something of this scale will probably come from staff with kind of a memo from the Conservation Commission, recommending it or supporting it.
I'm assuming you guys are starting off with looking at other towns and but not just in Maine, but that have maybe similar characteristics to ours and seeing how they've handled low impact development, sort of, that's a
Most
starting
of-
point.
Right, most of the towns in Maine are in the same boat we are, they were handed this, so we're all in the same point.
Okay.
So it is important that we have looked outward and looking at like New England. In other,
Puget Sound is
in
one that
other-
Autumn had found.
Right.
yeah,
Right. okay.
and looking at what other states or cities are doing in other states and things like that, cause I feel like we're probably on a good path. There's other towns that are, cause we're all getting the same permit requirements that are probably on a slower track. But I think it's important while we have momentum to keep this moving.
So I'm looking at.
So we
this,
might be, my point was, sorry, is that we might be ahead of the other communities in
Good,
Maine
yeah.
in some
Which is,
respects.
but depending on, we need to be ahead of our own planning.
Yeah.
And thinking July and August, June. Boy, it would be nice to be really, when we send something to the ordinance committee, it has to be, if they stamp it, it's ready to fly. It's not schematic, it's not conceptual.
Right.
It's the whole thing, right?
So, and we can kind of talk about where, like, once we get into this a little bit more, what we think. Some, it can go both ways. So sometimes we'll bring it to the ordinance committee at like, I don't know, 60% or something, just to get their feedback on it before we've like really
I'm
spent.
glad to hear that.
all of the
because
time.
Before you
Or we would do like a
nothing
town
okay,
council,
right?
or we would do a town council workshop. on
Yeah,
it and
This
things like
probably
that.
will be,
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
those are very reassuring things to hear back. So we can really pour it in, knowing that if it doesn't work, we'll built in backup time that if we really stake out a lot of territory and want to do the very best, get pushback, it gives us time to meet this
Yeah.
schedule. If we push quickly and, yeah.
And we do have the fact that this is basically being mandated on the town by the state to say, you know, to be pretty aggressive with this timeline. That was, I think, one of the differences with our wetlands ordinance is that we brought this to them. No one was making us do it. We saw this as a need. And so we brought it to council. And so there was a whole lot of pushback that influenced the council because we weren't being mandated to do it. It was just the right thing to do.
Right.
And so now we're being told these are your minimums.
You have to do it.
So there can be pushback, but we're not gonna be able to give a whole lot. Cause we need to meet these minimum.
Yeah, and so
requirements.
most likely I could see us at council workshop or some kind of documentation of here's the minimum, here's what we're recommending. And kind of see that side by side to say, you know, this is the lowest bar. But we want to be at this and we
Make
can
it
go
work
through each
for it,
item, and
right.
maybe some, you know what I mean, we get kind of.
Are we gonna be able to see some of the draft language that you guys have come up with? And
Yeah,
then-
so that's-
and then give feedback, sort of workshop it internally.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's,
yeah.
our goal for March through June is to bring like chunks of
Okay.
language. Having 10 or 11 standards, I don't see us having everything to you all.
Yeah,
in
no,
one thing.
no, of course.
So-
Why not?
So hoping to bring a few, kind of to work through as a group.
And as we build on that, we want something to be cohesive in terms of our vision. So when you bring one, send it back, don't send them in isolation. is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, let us see it grow
All
and build,
together,
because
yeah.
that gives us a chance to go back and
Yeah.
find consistencies where we might have lost some, or I think that would be a good way to see it.
I think that would all be in our minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can remind ourselves that.
But
we
we'll-
should
I
go
mean,
back and
I-
look at our
yeah, I-
minutes so that we will remember what we.
Yeah, but I think
Whatever.
that we would bring it to, we would give it to you and probably just highlight the sections that have changed. and things like
Yeah, that would be, yeah,
So
sort of what we did with the trees.
Yeah,
the public feedback part, would that be like the town council workshop?
Yeah, town council workshop, I mean,
Ordinance committee is a public meeting.
Yeah.
We'll get feedback.
Should we attend an ordinance committee meeting as a, just to? be part of
yes,
that?
once it's,
That was
once
big,
it's
yeah.
scheduled, once we know that we're on the agenda. it'll-
mandatory.
Yeah, it'll be helpful to have.
But it wasn't picked up in the recording. I wanted your nod to be on record.
I mean, I think you saw in the Sawyer Street, process, even though it didn't go the way we wanted it to, it was really important to have
Yeah.
voices in support in the room.
We tried.
Yes, yes, you did.
Oh my
So-
gosh, we did.
Hopefully this isn't going to be quite like that. But again, it's helpful whenever, something like this, it's a big change and, we're gonna have a loud contingency in town that doesn't wanna see this happen. So it'll always be helpful to have people in
I
support.
think a big takeaway from the Sawyer Street Road debacle was that without scripting, we each showed up there and stood up and said something different. And I think that should continue to be our goal.
Yeah.
As opposed to standing up and repeating what they can read in
Yeah.
this is good because.
Yeah.
This is good because the state wants us to. Does it really come at it from different angles? And so I've been saying that because I think hearing it now, as things really resonate for us, that we can really say, this is why this really works. And things that aren't necessarily thinking they're on the table, bring in other information that to support this, so it's not just a standalone thing. So I thought we failed, but we did a good job.
Can I
Just be on the cable, Elizabeth.
Can I just redirect us to our agenda, because I want to make sure we have time to, not to cut up. But we
Yeah,
can talk,
got it.
we have plenty of time to talk about how we show up. I just want to make sure Jamie has
Yeah.
time to.
I think we're like right on time, which is
Okay,
pretty
great.
remarkable. So we can, if anyone else has any other last questions, we can go through that. Otherwise, I guess we'll just say kind of to be continued. This is going to be a regular agenda item moving forward for the
In
foreseeable.
terms of what we could read or to prepare ourselves, so you mentioned Puget Sound.
Yep, I can send out that information. So what I have found and when I was looking is that a lot of this is actually in technical manuals in other communities. So for examples that I've found that are good, or that we have found that are good, we can share those out
Okay.
with you all for your information.
And then one last question, so, we have things like the open space plan, that, could, I don't know how that interplays with some of this, or not.
Yeah, well, I think getting to the whole suggestion that Autumn had where only a certain percentage of the site can be disturbed, maybe that percentage that isn't disturbed gets conserved in some way, or
Right.
protected in some way.
Right,
And I think part of the goal of this is to help us identify the high value areas of a parcel so that they are not disturbed.
Okay. okay.
That's a goal. How we achieve that, we'll have to see how that all plays out. But yeah, that's part of the goal is to make sure that, we're not wreaking havoc on these really important areas of town.
And then, that desire to increase the buffer zone, can be it can be incorporated into this effort, right?
Yeah, so it's required as part of this, and I think that it would, for any kind of like site plan or anything like that, it will become part of the official like site plan documentation layout of the site, so theoretically, they should not be able to disturb those buffer areas,
Okay.
or we will have to write it in such a way.
Right.
Write the approvals and things like that.
In terms of going to the council for a revisiting of that issue, it could be folded into this effort to develop the low impact development.
Yeah, all is one package, yeah.
all of them package.
Yeah, or there are certain areas where if they do kind of want to piggyback on stuff that's happening related to LD 1829, like there are pieces of this that we can maybe pull out and address sooner rather than later if there's support for that.
Okay, Okay.
So the wetlands or the natural resources setback is one of those, impervious cover is one of those. Those are areas where if the council is interested in moving sooner on those, we can focus on those first.
Cause those are already in our ordinance, so it's a matter of changing a number, so
Okay.
while it's simple for like an edit to the, or I say simple, it's autumn. Autumn makes
We're
it
on
simple
Facebook
right now, I know, but
But
it's
then her
already a
camera's not
standing
working.
ordinance, so it's like modifying that standing ordinance, that's
Okay.
where we're trying to pull out, like, there are some things that can move ahead quicker if we have the support of council. If we
Okay.
think we have the support of council, that can be implemented.
Okay.
Council should have something about, for impervious surface, or, I thought she had some sort of angle.
Yeah, she's noted a couple times that she would like to see us address impervious cover. So, and I think that also in relation to tree cutting as well.
Yep.
They kind of go, they don't have to go hand in hand, but they can go hand in hand. Anything else? Right on time. Some more than miracles.
So we don't have any updates from town council.
Do we have an appointment?
Hmm?
Do we have a representative?
Karen will continue to be our liaison. And I should have sent you all, and I didn't, so I'll send it after the meeting, I apologize, but the town council's goals for the year. They did approve them.
It's in the newsletter.
Yeah,
It is.
it is in the newsletter. They approved them at the second January meeting, but I can send them out directly to you all. And I don't have a Parks and Conservation Land Board update other than they are still working on finalizing their evaluation form that will then need to go to the town council for approval. And once that's done, all of the information will be incorporated into a final GIS-based app to help them, that's based on the open space plan, that will help them evaluate parcels that come before them. Andrew, do you have anything related to Parks and Conservation Land Board potentially?
No, it's in the application and support materials for the application are in draft form and they hope to finish that up at their next meeting.
Awesome. Transportation Committee.
Well, they're doing,
There's a lot happening.
So we're moving forward with the Metro Connect. I don't know if you guys heard about that. So, enhancing the fixed route. So right now it's, the Bedford Sackville Orchard bus that comes through almost randomly. It's every 2.5 or something hours. I'm not exaggerating. I think it's every 2.5 hours. So what, from Metro in Portland now, they're rerouting South Portland, including Scarborough, and kind of doing a more frequent fixed route along Route 1. But then on top of that, incorporating in microtransit. So kind of like little shuttle buses. And they are working on developing their service areas. So the Transportation Committee has been weighing in on that. So almost like a rideshare Uber, but it's through Metro. And they at the last Transportation Committee meeting, Metro kind of presented where they're at. They're also talking about any amenities that need to happen with the transit improvement, which they're having conversations with the Downs about maybe incorporating into their future traffic movement permit, or also subsidizing some of the transit, also Maine Health. And so the plan is to come back to transportation one last time before they go to council. The other thing is at the last meeting, we had a presentation from the Deputy Commissioner of DOT to talk about Portland West, they're calling it, which is the former Gorham bypass, which I know you guys are interested in. So MTA is not part of this project at all. DOT is picking up basically from scratch. They're starting with collecting data and doing their own kind of analysis to see what alternatives can happen to really relieve the congestion out of North Scarborough is one of the many places. It also rolls into kind of the right nav corridors and things. It's basically commuters going west. And we see that bottleneck, obviously in North Scarborough, it's people just getting through to Western to Portland type of thing. So that is kicking off. They have a new consultant. They're very much, she was very clear that this is starting from zero, and no conceived notions on what the outcome will be, and new consultant. And committed to kind of checking in with the communities, which she did, coming to our transportation committee and developing like the real stakeholder groups to kind of go through the process. So I think it was promising.
Okay.
And that's the take back way I got from the transportation group too. So that was good. They're also finalizing a complete streets and traffic calming guidance manual. So it's basically kind of just that, like how we would look for guidance on any streets we do, as well as any traffic calming requests, what can happen on certain streets. So as Julie was talking about, looking at how we increasing impervious cover on roadways. So there's also a lot of pushback, like trying to get towards a lot of more bike and ped facilities, which a lot of times come with impervious pavement. But then I think our group at the transportation committee is really kind of looking at the option of like reassessing kind of what our impervious surface and saying maybe you reallocate some of that to other needs or uses. And so that's been really a focus that they keep kind of is woven through a lot of what they do. So not necessarily all about moving traffic in some cases. Sometimes we talk about it a lot is maybe we need congestion on Route 1 to get people on the turnpike, those kind of things that are just going from Saco to Portland. We have a lot of cut through traffic in Scarborough, so it's, and maybe reallocating a lane for a bike maybe helps in that effort. So those type of things. So that's the most recent.
Sustainability committee, they have decided that we will be doing Sustainable Scarborough Day once again. So there was some question there. And so they are in favor of Sustainable Scarborough Day. So mark your calendar for October 4th. That is when it will be.
Hey, Jamie, have you heard that Community Services is thinking about a fall event?
I have not.
You might touch base with it. Nick mentioned it the other day, and I don't think it's finalized, but it might be really close, and it might, I don't know, might be something to think about.
And that's the community services.
Yeah. That would be good to coordinate.
It might,
on them.
yeah, it might be something could be part of and get a whole lot more exposure.
Agreed. Thank you for mentioning that. 'Cause I
Sure.
had not.
If anybody wants, I can see if the library is always looking to do programs. Maybe there's something that we're ready to spring to.
Yeah, I've been chatting with Elsa.
Oh, okay, then I'll stay right out.
Yeah, so between Sustainability Committee and then Climate Action Plan, which I'll touch on next, there's gonna be a lot of like community engagement and outreach stuff happening. And hoping to partner a lot with the library for certain things. So I saw Elsa at a meeting last week and I was like, we really need to set up a time to chat because I've got lots to talk to you about.
Good.
The other item for Sustainability Committee is that they are working on a resolution that they want to bring to the town council in support of state legislation that would create the Climate Superfund site. So basically, forcing large polluters to pay large amounts of money due to the climate crisis. It's based on tobacco settlement and tobacco legislation in various states. So really they would be focusing on the oil and gas companies, producers, not any Maine-based companies or anything like that. Similar legislation has passed in Vermont and New York, but it is currently being challenged through the courts. And so sustainability sees this kind of as like symbolic legislation that like something needs to happen. We have so many needs in terms of resiliency and adaptation and cutting our greenhouse gas emissions, that there isn't enough money in the state. And so this is basically the state's way of saying polluters, you need to do something.
So go to a fund, which then would be used to, fund.
Yeah.
Fund.
Fund programs.
Programs.
If it gets
Right,
funded, right.
Yeah. So, the chances of it passing, I think are probably pretty good. The chances of anything coming of it in the near term, probably not so good. But we'll see how that goes. So, need to, figure out when, that is going to go to the town council. And then I did mention climate action plans, so we are pulling together our advisory group for that. Abel is the representative from this group to the climate action plan advisory group. We're looking at our first meeting at the end of February. And there's gonna be 3 meetings of this group between February and June, going over the greenhouse gas inventory. And then, kind of reviewing reduction strategies and potentially helping with engagement events. Spring and summer are going to be jam-packed full of community engagement for the climate action plan. So we'll start rolling out information about that coming soon. Our consultants are working on pulling together kind of the online dashboard website for that project, and then we'll start really pushing out information to the public about it once there's kind of the landing spot for it. Should be coming in the next couple of weeks. So that project is on track to wrap up probably early fall this year. So there's going to be lots more coming for that very soon. And that's the last update.
If I can add one more
Yes.
thing, I just wanna, if you guys don't know, we are doing a workshop on Scotto Hill culvert failure, which has multiple options that we're gonna be laying out for council and costs associated with it. One of the options is the removal of the culverts, and restoring Beaver Brook in that area. It might also include doing some offsite improvements or adding a bypass road to kind of move that traffic around it and outside of the floodplain area. And we are hearing a lot of opposition to that about, wanting that road, as we saw with Sawyer Street. People get used to their roads and their travel and their commute, and I think it's hard to change, even though this has been closed since May. Scotto Hill, I think we're still seeing some consistent feedback of wanting that open. So I just want to put that out there that I think council will be hearing the options and kind of weighing in and giving staff direction on which way to go with it. And there's also multiple options for culvert replacement. There is, because it's a local road, there are some minimum standards that are at a lower standard than our vulnerability assessment that we just finished and adopted, would not recommend we put in, but it's like a short-term fix to get that road open. I think staff, if we went that direction, staff is recommending to follow our vulnerability assessment guidance and going with what Jamie mentioned is the coastwise tidal crossing. That's why it's important for us to talk about it when we talk about LID ordinance and other ordinances like that. And that's kind of things that we should be following. So when we're investing, it's in a long-term solution rather than short-sighted. So those are all the things that will be coming up. And so that is Wednesdays, the council workshop. And then
Oh, is this coming Wednesday?
Yes.
Or this week?
Yes.
this,
Oh,
2
okay.
days
Does that
from
make
2
it
days.
six- Does that make it 6 o'clock?
I think it's 5:30.
But then also there is gonna be a council corner live the following Thursday. I think that's the 10th. Is that the word?
I think it's the 12th.
12th. Okay, February 12th. There'll be a council corner live. I believe that's safety vote, right? So that'll be that's more of a back and forth with just residents and council. Staff is not usually part of
Will that be at Scotto Hill or will that be here?
that. I think is at the public safety building.
Public safety.
And that is more of a, a back and forth with council that residents can kind of give their feedback and do a back and forth where workshop is really staff kind of laying out, here's what we're hearing. Here's the options you have and the costs associated with it and timing, things like that.
And this is Wednesday at 5:30. Is this something that would be helpful for all or some of us to be there?
If you have a strong opinion, either way.
There'll be public comment.
How a workshop works is if they have time, they'll do public comment. If not, they open, council meeting starts at 7, they'll open council meeting and it'll be open for public comment.
That's right.
Typically, they get comments from the workshop item.
And if you recall, this group back in August, wrote a letter of support for a grant related to Scotto Hill.
Yes,
We
received that.
We did receive that grant. We have not accepted that grant yet because we are going through this public process. To understand which path was supported by the community.
Because the grant is for the removal. Which we went through the review committee and they recommended for us to move forward. It's just our council would have to accept it.
It would be the same degree of some. Like, even like those formalities, would those be the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be the same kind of formal statutory process that we went through with.
Yes, just one meeting.
With just
With
our-
just- with just.
That's better. Yeah.
Lots of neighbors, but.
Yeah, so we've learned a lot through that process. MNRCP, which is the grant funder, learned a lot through that process, and they basically said, do not accept this grant until you know kind of which path you're taking.
Right.
Which is what we were hoping they would say.
It's great that you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have we articulated a position of this commission?
This commission supported the removal.
Removal.
We look back at the letter.
Well, no, I have to accept, I've had some health issues. I was medicated for the best part of 14 months and I'm back now. So I don't remember anything from back in there. Just be kind.
Yeah, I can send the
We should
letter
do that
of
anyway.
support that. Yeah, exactly.
I had that problem and I'm not medicated.
Right?
Oh, yeah. So I just want to be sure that we don't, if that we represent, if we're going in to represent the board, that we at least get our hand signals right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like,
Commission, rather.
based on the conversations that we've had in this group, that this group would advocate for the resilient option. So whether that is removing the
I'm with it.
culvert and restoring the stream.
It's all
or
coming
putting
back
in a
to me,
larger
yeah.
culvert.
The coastwise principle.
Right.
Long-term solution.
Yeah,
Right.
I was thinking, and Peter did a lot of talking about it. Okay, that's what, no, which
It's
was
all
a very
coming back to
good
you.
thing. It was a good thing.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
okay.
yeah, and I am happy to, I can also send out the letter of support that this group put together, as part of the grant application also.
Okay, that would help us
Add
all
some
later.
jobs and then.
So I'm gonna try to go to the workshop, just,
So the last thing I just wanted to check in with you all on, since it is February 2nd. Is our next February meeting would be the 25th. Do we still want to meet the 25th? Or do we want to have a prolonged intervening time and plan to meet in March?
Do you think that there will be language for us to review?
I think
by
March is more likely to have
Okay.
language than February
that's-
25th.
That would be good.
That was my, there's something to work on, we bring us in.
Yeah.
But if there isn't, and you can have some explaining to do. But if there really isn't, then I don't know whether we want to go to the end of March, but so I would suggest flexibility about meeting rather than chewing up the best part of a month if there's data on the
Yeah.
table.
I would suggest we go to our regular month date just so that we get back on our normal meeting.
Okay,
There will be a schedule, the council will talk about it.
No, not for this group, I don't think. I mean, it's all related to LID.
Yeah,
For the
so-
most part.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Well,
I
and
agree.
obviously, we're all on email, so if
Right.
there's
Yeah.
something urgent. we
We're
can-
here, we all live in town.
I know, I would like that.
But no, yeah, I'm in the agreement.
So maybe if we can try, anybody who's able, try to go to the workshop and hear about.
Would you be able to, so it's Wednesday this week and then Thursday next week?
Yeah, I can send you out calendar
That'd be
invites if
great,
that's
yeah,
helpful.
because this week I might not be able to, but next week, okay.
And then I will say it's probably going to be on the council's second February agenda to kind of take action if there's kind of clear direction that they're hearing from the community, so that would be February 18th. Scott Hill Road may be on the agenda there as well.
We're missing somebody here. The man from Pleasant Hill,
Yeah, Creighton is not here this evening.
oh, he's still with us.
Yes, as far as I know. All right, I'm just making a note to send you all calendar invites.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I said, we would-
Thanks all. We will see you on March 25th. And I will update the February calendar.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.